The user experience of QR codes is what I love about them. It doesn't take a lot of effort for the art lover to become an art client. They just have to have a phone. So our town hall today is focusing on answering questions, of clarifying some of these topics we've suggested as far as tips and tricks that you should be using to improve the branding and marketing of your art. Melissa says, I'd like to know more about QR codes for social media. I got as far as signing up for a free 14-day trial, but I found it too hard to discover how the pricing went after the initial 14 days. Melissa, thank you for your question. You should be using QR codes, capital Q, capital R, QR codes for your art. And if you don't know what a QR code is, it is a unique stamp, basically, that if someone takes a photo of it with a smartphone, which is like, you know, anything over like an iPhone 2 or whatever is pretty much a smartphone, it has the technology to identify it through the camera and then ask you as the person holding the phone, would you like to be taken to this website or this place on the internet? And it'll take you straight to wherever you want them to go. And so imagine the potential of having a small QR code underneath every single piece of art you have hanging anywhere. 2022 goals or whatnot, you know, is like maybe our labels when we have a gallery will have your name, your medium, the size, the price, you know, and then have a little code. And it doesn't have to be very big as long as it's sharp. Like think about, I know some of you have probably played with as artists, putting a piece of your art, like a really small picture of it, on a business card. Right? And business cards are tiny. So it almost doesn't even matter like what you make, big or small scale, it'll never really do it justice. But you and I both know if you're putting your art on a business card, like something you're going to hand to people and say, please hire me and, you know, pay me for a commission, then hello, welcome, Beverly. Essentially, you want that piece of art on your business card to be as sharp as possible, right? Think of QR codes the same way. A QR code looks like a little like ink blot, what is it called, a Rorschach? This like a psychological, you know, psychoanalysis ink blots. It's like, it kind of looks like that sometimes. And as long as it's just black and white, but as long as your QR code is sharp, it can be very small. And so we're not talking about like taking up a lot of real estate. And it's funny for me to say this out loud because Kay knows I just went and visited one of our artists at the Mill Valley Fall Arts Festival, and I had printed out a QR code for her on like a big framed, you know, thing that she can sit on the table. And like her only feedback was that I'd like just kind of printed it like a little too big, you know, like compared to some of the art and stuff. But QR codes don't have to be big, they can be small. So anywhere that you know, hi Georgette, that you'd be able to put your art, like a little teeny picture of your art, onto a piece of marketing material, a business card, a poster, right? A flyer, a postcard, a greeting card, anywhere that's printed where you would want like photo perfect accuracy of the image of your artwork. In the same way, just make sure that your QR code is sharp. So to answer your question, Melissa, you never need to pay for a service to create QR codes. If you look up on Google QR codes, capital Q, capital R, QR codes generator, and add in the word free, because that just, you know, whittles out the paid stuff, you'll see there are tons, but just go for the top 5 with Google because those are usually the trusted ones. So go for the first page of results. But in the first like 1 or 2 results of free QR codes generator, it's an online website, no login. They're not taking your email. You don't need a password. You're literally going to a page on the internet, pasting in a link, and it generates a unique QR code that you can just then download to your computer as a JPEG or a PNG, just like a picture of your art, right? That quality of file. It is categorically a photo, but it's a little file that you can put on anything, and just know that it's black and white. So yes, if you have a certain aesthetic, that little black and white guy, little tiny square, might not be in your aesthetic, but you can't really change the color. You know, that's the thing I've learned is like you don't want to get weird and artsy and start like, I don't know, painting over your QR code or printing it in blue, like stick to the black and white. And so it works really well for labels. It works really well for posters. It works really well for any installation where you have a table of artwork. And when you're like, do I need QR codes? As an artist, think, how many times have I met someone and I have to spell my name to them? Right? And like we've got Georgette here today, and I've worked with Georgette. She's a client of mine. Love you. And Georgette has kind of a long name, Georgette Osserman, right? And her abbreviated branding is Jet, but her name on Instagram is Georgette Osserman. And Osserman, it's like immediately my journalist, former newspaper brain is like, okay, 2 S's or 2 M's or 2 N's, right? Like when you have this person typing in a short or long name that involves like your spelling your first or last name, especially if it's unique, there's just a chance, thumbs, clumsy phone, like who knows, like where they will misspell it and then they can't find you, and like Instagram isn't auto correcting them or giving them suggestions based on that for whatever reason, and they just cannot. With a QR code, it goes directly to where you want it to go. It could be your Instagram, it could be your Facebook, it could be your website, it could be the contact page on your website, it could be the custom commissions page on your website. You could have 100 different QR codes. Just know that in these situations where you would have it, you should kind of just have one, unless it's something where it's the same one under all the pieces of art. Or if it is like on an actual little, you know, label next to your artwork and it's not obtrusive, you could have under each artwork a link straight to a specific web page on your website with that piece of art where they could check out and buy it, right? And one of our attendees today is Iris, also a client. Shout out, Iris. Love you.
Hey.
Iris is a super savvy e-commerce artist. What does that mean? That means she has a website where someone could check out and buy something literally on her site, like not having to go through Amazon or eBay or Etsy or Pinterest or any of these other kind of shopping platforms. It's like through her site. So she could have, Iris will talk about this. She could have one QR code under each piece of art that will go straight to that page where someone could purchase it online and then show her that they paid for it. And they could take it that way. And that could be the whole transaction. She doesn't even have to have a card reader or take cash. The person just hits, you know, capture on their camera. It's like, are you trying to reach this website? You go to the page on their website, they check out and they buy your art online and you can physically hand it to them right there. Right? So as long as you have a good e-commerce engine, you know, something trusted. We've all been online shopping where it's like, you know, protected by this, trusted by this, copyright, blah, blah, all of the privacy stuff at the bottom. So just make sure, yes, like that you're doing your due diligence as an artist to make sure your website is a safe place for people to run their credit card. But otherwise, that is like what I would consider next level usage of QR codes. Basic level of QR codes is on your business card, on your little printouts, on your flyers, on anything that is printed, like your artist statement or bio. Is that printed somewhere for someone to read on a wall? Put a little QR code at the bottom in the corner, not like in their face or whatnot. Like they'll find it if they're looking for it. But that would allow someone to read all about you, get your whole backstory, and then be like, yeah, because of learning that about them, I want to learn more. I want to digitally support them. I want to sign up for their newsletter. I want to join their art group. So think of like the direct access and ease. The user experience of QR codes is what I love about them. It doesn't take a lot of effort for the art lover to become an art client. They just have to have a phone with Wi-Fi. And like, yes, it helps to have a PayPal account, but you know, that kind of stuff, like a phone with Wi-Fi, and they'll be able to take a picture of something and be taken to your presence online and support you in whatever way you want them to. Back to you, Melissa. So I would cancel your trial of this QR code program that you're using and just use the free ones. Even if you're constantly making them, you just cut and paste. So when you're at Google, you go to the bar, and you type in QR code generator, and you just toss the word in free before or after. Create your free QR codes. The very first one, q-code-generator.com, right? You could write that down or just look this up and you'll get it on Google. And when we click, and I've used this one before, this is a good one. Don McCartney. Let's say that we're here in Google, right? And he's got his website. And this is the main page of Don's website. And that loaded very quickly, Don. You have a nice website. So all you would do is take maybe the main page of your website, copy this link. You see it's in blue on the top. And I hit, Command C, or you would right click on a PC. See how it says enter your website text or drop a file. So there are all sorts of things you could get crazy with QR codes with, but we're just trying to do URL, like a place on the internet, right? Enter your website and you hit Control V or paste. Now to the right, we see a bunch of little squares and a couple big squares, and that is a unique code for his website. And frames, as this thing is saying new and blue and stuff like that, of course, at some point, this website that's free might want to lure you into doing something paid, but you don't really need to. You can just pick the basic. I like this one. It says scan me. Easy. And honestly, it's a JPEG, people. We all know a little Photoshop, right? A little photo editing. You can just crop the black out from a little free JPEG like this and not have to scan me. But I like the scan me like that. They also have this scan me with scan me overhead. So, but these are things that can be printed, like I was saying earlier, in smaller or larger formats. And you just got to look at it online and be like, does it look sharp to me? And then once it's printed on something, you just take your own phone and take a picture of it. So I don't know who here has who wants to be our guinea pig, but if we zoom in on this QR code, if someone wants to take their phone and up to the screen right now, the screen share, and take a picture of that and see if it takes you, or see if your phone asks you, do you want to be?
Yep, it works.
Hooray! See? Okay, so that just shows you digitally it works, but in general, you don't necessarily have to use QR codes on things like social media or other places on the internet. It's more of like an in-person thing. So let's say I like this one with Scan Me at the top. This says like with logo. Again, these are all just temptations, these things in blue. Sign up, all this, log in to join something and pay something. So you would download as a JPEG. Right? And if I hit download and it says free sign up, QR code, again, it's just selling itself to you because it's a free platform. It's like Facebook selling itself to you. So you hit X. And then if we go and hit download again, oh, free sign up. Use your own QR code. We don't need to know this though. Your QR code is being generated. Okay, here we go. Please do not refresh or edit. So it's just taking a second. Oh, and then if we look in the bottom here, I don't know if you can see, but it says frame. So if I double click that and my Mac just opens it, ta-da, we have our scan me JPEG, and it's technically a PNG, which means that it's a sheer backdrop potentially that you can overlay on something, like I said, or you can just crop this out in white, but you want the black part with a little bit of white space around it so that it can be photographed on different size devices. If Dawn wanted to get creative and be like, you know what, we've got our portfolio, about, graphic design, events, but like what's going to close the deal and sell some art? It's your contact page. It's someone actually starting a conversation with you. So now you can see the address is just a little different. It's his website /contact. So we copy that whole thing in blue, copy, go back to the QR code generator. And you see, I didn't have to sign up for anything. It was just me being impatient and not seeing the little thing that's like, we're making it slowly for you. Hold, please. So now it's Don McCartney contact. Does this look much different than the other one? No. And that's kind of why you don't necessarily want to have a lot of them, like on a poster or on a printout on a table or whatever. It's good to just kind of commit to one because they do look very similar. And you can almost like confuse them, if you don't have them labeled. And people can be very receptive to QR codes and using them, but they might not be QR code happy, where they want to go like to all the places. right? They like only want to follow you on Instagram, or they only want to sign up for your newsletter. They don't want to necessarily go to all these different places. The exception is, like I was saying before, potentially product pages for specific pieces of art that you have hanging. Imagine you have a piece of your art hanging in a window at night, and there's a QR code in the window. Someone could take a picture of the QR code through the window and go to your website. The gallery is not open, the person's not coming back later, but they have all the information they need to make an inquiry. How cool is that? Or to learn about the artist, or to read about the artist, right? What if the QR code is like, read about the artist and not buy me or follow me or do something self-serving? It's like, what if it's just like, read about the person who made this piece of art, and the QR code goes to your about page on your website, right? Let's look at his about page. That's a good picture. I like it. I prefer a little more face because it's kind of small.
Yeah.
Which means it's super small on a smartphone. But otherwise, I think this looks good and it's clean. I hope that helps with QR codes. They are something that I think, as I mentioned earlier, Kay and I are in a conversation about potentially implementing them in Marin Open Studios in-person events. So if that's the case, then we may or may not offer more resources and workshops or other things of that sort to help artists use these and create them. But as I showed you today, you just need the link and that free site and a little patience. What was it, 30 seconds? And you can have an original one for any page on any part of the internet. And again, if it's social media, it's in your browser, but it's instagram.com/Don McCartney. We now have Instagram. Okay, so the next person said, looks like most of my followers are artists, which is great, but how do I reach art collectors, galleries, etc.? Great question. So Instagram is definitely a big topic. We did a full workshop on Instagram last year on the basics as well as things like hashtags. So for any artists on the call today who weren't aware, on our YouTube channel, we actually have a playlist that you can use to learn more about any of the basic social media topics, but like more in depth. And anybody who attended those workshops, maybe some of them were a little over your head the first time and you want to kind of check it out again, like it's a great 16-part series. So you can go back to it, you can watch a few, you can check one out. Just like with most video, you can scrub back and forward to different parts of it if you want to. So it's a great resource for your continued learning. That said, Renat, the question of having more art lovers in your feed versus just fellow artists and creatives is a tricky one, because especially in the last year and a half, whatever you want to say, since the pandemic shutdown, there has been a galactic uptick in painters, illustrators, sculptors, embroiderers, hat makers, like anybody who could find something to like create or make or like put their creative time into while they were stuck at home, they did. And now all of a sudden you have a completely oversaturated art market, especially when it comes to online. Both amateur and professional, there is just way too much content out there for like the average art lover to process. And so some of the best ways of getting on the radar of people who would potentially buy your art, it's one of two routes. If social media is not intuitive for you, meaning that it's a place you like to be, it's a place you like to go, and so then you just naturally start connecting with people and making friends and sharing stories, and next thing you know, you go and have coffee with a person and you tell someone years later, we met through Instagram, right? So unless you're that person, there's two approaches. One is to advertise. Instagram and Facebook as a dual platform, because one owns the other, is a business marketing monster. And part of it is because it's been studying the human psyche and our purchasing choices for over a decade. And we let it because it's free. And so one of the only ways as someone trying to make money on one of these platforms is to actually, sounds a little counterintuitive, but you got to spend money to make money. If you've ever heard that expression, you got to put $5 or $10 or hey, $50 behind a picture of art, behind a video of you painting, behind a poster for an upcoming show. Put a little money behind what's called boosting or create an ad from scratch, which again, check our YouTube. We've got, how to make ads. But the benefit of doing any amount of advertising in any quantifiable amount of dollars, $1 is the minimum a day. You all of a sudden have Facebook and Instagram working for you and then eventually reporting back to you what it did with your money. And that includes showing it to complete strangers. So if you want to start flipping your following and getting more fresh blood, if you will, you really want to try to play the game, because if you kind of already know most of your followers are artists, is that just based on your interactions, or do you know that statistically? Like, do you know statistically that 73% of your followers are women, or that 50% of them are over the age of 50? Or that less than 25% of them are actually in California? All of these statistics and analytics are a little scary and a little advanced. I'm not a math or numbers person. I'm like less empowered feminist, because I'm like, women are good at everything men can, but I'm like, I hate math, like, Barbie in the 80s. So in that respect, I get it when you're like, numbers, analytics, but it's good to know that 75% of your followers are women. As soon as you know how many of them are male or female, how many of them are under or over the age of 40, how many of them are in the state of California, and more, then all of a sudden you have a very educated strategy on what to do with your time and money when it comes to social media. Because if it is mostly artists under the age of 30, you're like, they're all just trying to be inspired by my art so they can make money like I'm making money, right? They're learning from you through you sharing your process, that kind of thing. And if you want to get more people who are like, I want that, I want to buy that, how much is that? Can I get something like that? Oh, it's sold, I want to commission one just like it, right? If you want that kind of action on social media, advertising is step number one. Step number two, and it's almost more uncomfortable. What would you rather do? Depart with your money or actually have like a heart-to-heart conversation with a human being? Relationships is your second strategy to getting more art buyers into your following. Artist to artist, yes, let's support each other, but sometimes a collector wants to get to know you so that they have a coffee table, cocktail party conversation that they can tell someone when they have your $2,000 or $4,000 commission on their wall, and someone's like, oh wow, that's a beautiful piece of art, and they're like, yes, you should. Melissa Woodburn is just so talented. She does these sculptures of like bunnies and rabbits, but like in a regal Renaissance way. And she's up in Novato, and she's the sweetest. And she has this dog that's like kind of barky, but so cute. Like, how does anybody know anything about Melissa? Like, what if this person is out of state and all of this? It's like, she posted about her dog once, and she does mold a lot of regal rabbits and Renaissance clothing. I know it's tarot cards, Melissa. I know you're just an example, you know what I'm saying. But all of a sudden someone has a really interesting perspective on the person who created the thing. And in this oversaturated market, one of the ways to stand out, besides paying the platform to statistically show your art to someone, because like, what is the advertising statistic? Like, you got to see something 7 times before you decide to buy it. And so it's like, you can advertise and the platform will show someone your art to someone 7 times. And then they'll probably, like Georgette said, they'll just be like, you know what, I'm just going to go to her studio and buy a piece or commission a piece. And so that frequency comes faster with ads. With relationships, you can put yourself on someone's radar by just showing an interest in their life. Like, I'm a big proponent of follow for follow on social media, especially Instagram, because it's like, let's all support each other. And so when it comes to my art collectors, I know where they live. I know if they're married. I know if they have a pet. I know if they're like a drinker, you know? It's like all those things you just know from even just interacting with them online and or knowing them in person. And so advertising and relationship building are the two ways, Renat, that you can really flip that, because of course you can build relationships with fellow artists too. Of course, your ads will attract more artists too. But the more that you have the statistics, the more educated your strategy can be, and the more that you lean into relationships with potential buyers, the more they feel like they actually have a connection with you compared to any other sculptor, digital artist, or landscape painter out there. And there are now more out there with e-commerce shops, you know, going. And so you have to think of competition as an artist at some point. If that is your goal, right? You want to sell more, you want to make money, you want to support yourself through your art, then you can't be afraid of numbers, and you can't be afraid to experiment with advertising. And when you want the big money, you can't be afraid to like take the time to get to know the actual person, right? My husband works in real estate. Guess what he's always trying to do with clients when they're deciding whether or not to purchase a home through him? Get to know him, learn more about him, hang out with him, go have drinks with him. Like, you know, it's all about actually showing an interest in the people that are in that ideal demographic. And so when you do advertising and relationship building, which is what I do, you have the ultimate success because people are seeing you all the time. And then you're on there talking to them and interacting with them and caring about what's going on with them, and not just posting your art, making sure it's got the right amount of hashtags Caron said it did or it should, and then peace out. And Georgette can tell you an organic approach to social media that has nothing to do with advertising or relationship building is to just, or relationship building, it does, but it doesn't have anything to do with advertising. Organically, you start to use more questions in your social media captions. Or when someone says, love this, like this, so pretty, so talented, right? Those 1 and 2 word responses on social media where you're like, how do I even engage with that? Ask them a question. What do you love about it? You know, I do too. What room in your house would you hang it in? Isn't that direct? But now you and the whole social media feed are thinking about where they would put it in their home. So consider how when you're at a cocktail party and there's like somebody trying to make eye contact with you and you kind of don't want to, I don't know, men, ladies, it's more of a ladies thing, but you get it. You're at a cocktail party. It's that annoying person. You don't really want to engage with them. So you know if they come up to you and engage with you, they ask how you are, they ask how your wife is, they ask how work is, they ask how your mom is, they ask how, you know, the weather, the la la. You answer, but you never ask anything back. Like, how's your mother? How's your work? Think of social media that way. It's like a party, it's a social scene. The more that you show an interest in the people who engage with your art in any way whatsoever, even if it's just a heart emoji, you interacting with them and potentially engaging with them is how you get the conversation started. And when I say the conversation, it's the sales conversation. It's flipping your mind from the creative and the creation and the inspiration and thinking about how you're going to help that person better understand you and your art so that they are making an informed and educated decision on what they're investing in. They might not know exactly how to do it or how long it took you or exactly what tools you used, but they know the person who made it. And when you have an emotional form like art, knowing the person who made the thing is a big part of emotionally connecting with it when it comes to investing in it, right? You can go to a museum all day long and be like, that's beautiful, that's lovely, that's beautiful, that's lovely, how beautiful, it's talented, lovely. But would you want to own it and actually put it on your wall? Sometimes people just have to start thinking of your art on their wall and then they can't stop, right? It goes from liking something to wanting to own a part of it, but it's also a karmic thing, right? They want to support you in one way or another. So I've had artists where I've coached them and they're like, oh, I had open studios, or oh, I had like, this event or whatever. And I thought I'd sell these original pieces, but I only sold prints. And you're like, yeah, your original pieces are 500 and up and your prints are under 100. So I could see how people would come through on a weekend or whatever. There might be a lot of foot traffic and they want to support you, but they don't necessarily want to drop $500 on you. Why not? Maybe they don't know enough about you to invest that much in your craft, but they know enough about you to buy a print. They like what they saw. They think that you're cool. They want you to keep doing it. They're not going to spend that much money, but they'll get something small. So relationship building and advertising on social media is a lot about helping people to see and understand you in a way that makes them feel like they don't want to just support you. They want to participate. They want to be a part of your story, be your collector, be your follower, right? Like whether you're going to have a meteoric rise or not, they want to be part of your journey. And when they're really into it, that means they want to own a part of your journey. They want to own a product of your art. And so that's a kind of an intimate thing. Like when you have a collector who's bought several pieces from you, like I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it. Because I'm like, that person has invested so much more money in me than like any of my one-off pet portraits, one-off human portraits, right? Landscapes or whatnot. It's like when someone keeps coming back or referring you constantly, that's where you're like, that person means so much to me, So think that way about the potential. Advertising takes money, relationship building takes time, a little money, and you can get a good amount of success on these platforms once you kind of start welcoming the process and trying to become more comfortable on these platforms. One of the things we talked about in an email as well was content calendars. And so I'm not a big proponent of using a third-party service to post things on a schedule for me. I don't do that. But you can create a calendar of sorts, even if it's a spreadsheet that's like on Tuesdays, I'm going to post about my process, maybe, right? Me painting, me creating, me sculpting, me designing. Give yourself flexibility. Friday or Saturday, right? Don't be too hard on yourself when you're just first getting started. I'm going to post like a finished piece or a sold piece or my newest piece, right? But something where it's like the nice finished product so that in a given week, even if you only do 2 posts, people have seen something that's about you and how you make it and something that's about your art. But guess what? Life happens. Next thing you know, it's been 7 days since your last post. I've been there. So one of the better ways to keep yourself accountable is to set not just a calendar, but if you use something like, I love Google, everything like Google Drive, Gmail, so Google Calendar, like many calendar apps, will send you a notification on your phone reminding you that you need to post about your art today. And you could be right in the middle of painting something when you get this notification, right? If your phone's on while you create. And so you just have these little digital points of accountability so that you can be consistent. And so that's the main, tip that I was referring to as far as content calendars is like, if you're like, oh man, I keep not posting, like start having that on there. And if it's a recurring thing on your calendar, like you're going to be doing it every Tuesday, or you're going to be doing it every like Friday or Saturday, then it can be automated so that you'll always be reminded every week until eternity. Think of how technology can help you be better about social media in that respect. Tagging Marin Open Studios, which was also one of the points in our last social media email. We always want to feature artists in our feed on a feed post. But for everybody here and for everybody on the recording later, to make it clear, the best way for us to source that material is through your profile on the marinopenstudios.org website, meaning that when we go on Facebook and put an image of you and a picture of your art and a little bio or whatever, we always say, see more of this person's art at marinopenstudios.org. That statement isn't true if your profile doesn't have a picture of you, doesn't have an artist statement, only has one piece of art. They're not seeing more, right? Only seeing one thing. So we kind of qualify our featured posts on Instagram and Facebook by artists who have a complete profile. So if there's anybody on the line today who wants to be featured, felt like they haven't been featured in a while, you've got my email me after today. And I'll be happy to put you in the rotation. But once in a while, we've got artists that are like, why haven't I been featured? And I'm just like, I would like you to update your bio and add some fresh art. And so once you've done that, let me know and I'll feature you. And so this helps you to also just become more familiar with the potential of the Marin Open Studios website. And Kay wants me to mention, I'm sure we are in the process of improving and flipping and redoing and redesigning our website. But until such time that that launches, our regular website is still 100% searchable and functional. So if you're on the call today and you're like, I have no idea how to update my Marin Open Studios profile, that link I put in the chat with the YouTube ones, one of them is how to update your Marin Open Studios profile, right? It's public on YouTube, but it was for you guys. So it's specifically about how to do that. And once your bio is updated with these things, a photo of your face, some sort of, artist statement or background about you and your art, and then a few, I'd like to say at least 2 images of your work, and then we have something to pull from for that content. Beyond that, we are able to share content on our stories, for instance, which is a vertical, temporary, 24-hour, disappearing type of content. And so when you want to just be shared in that stories format, which could happen daily, just tag us in a story or tag us in a post, ampersand Marin Open Studios with no spaces on Instagram, or ampersand Marin Open Studios with the spaces, and then just usually, because Facebook's a little slower than Instagram in tagging, give it a second and Facebook will be like, oh, this Marin Open Studios, and you'll see our logo. That way we get a notification. I do, I'm the manager. I get it. I get a notification directly from the platform that's like, hey, this person tagged you on Facebook, this person tagged you in an Instagram story. And then I can just share it. And that's not a feature post on our feed, but we have a lot of people who engage on our social media platforms with those other types of shared content that aren't necessarily something that we posted with a caption and hashtags and all that stuff. So keep that in mind for those who want to be featured. And in general, anytime you post about your art, don't be shy. Don't think you're like overwhelming me with too many notifications. Like I do this for a living. So you can tag Marin Open Studios in every single post that you do on Facebook or Instagram, and I will make sure that we, share it in some capacity. Plus, some of you guys know that we also have the artist group on Facebook, which is a good way to kind of both brainstorm on different like artistic processes, but also just to kind of share your events with fellow artists and cross promote and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Chris says, please talk about posting only art versus posting things about your life sometimes. Thank you, Chris. It's an excellent question. The problem with a saturated art market is that social media is a little shallow and a little perfectionist. What does that mean? A lot of women over the age of 40 aren't necessarily comfortable taking selfies of themselves. Men too, but in general, as we know in our American culture, women are judged much more harshly for their physical appearance than men are. When you choose not to show your face or show those imperfect moments, those behind the scene moments that aren't the finished product, then you are just another absolutely beautiful, creative, perfect image in a sea of beautiful, perfect, creative images. It's this question of whether or not people even want to know those things about you. And the thing about showing your process and those imperfect moments is that it gives you an edge. And you might be like, wow, this is the most beautiful landscape I've ever painted. Or this is the most beautiful sculpture I've ever sculpted. Or like Don does beautiful digital art. And he was my first attendee today, so he gets special love. Don's like, I make spectacular digital artwork and freaking beautiful, gigantic prints of said artwork, right? So you can have all those assertions, but guess what? Social media is saturated in all of those categories in every media. So just go on there for a little gut check Hashtag landscape painting, hashtag digital art, hashtag original sculpture, and look at what the top performing posts are. The ones with 100 likes, the ones with 500 likes, the one with 2,000 likes, 10,000 likes, and look at how like well composed, perfect, sharp, all of those things are. And just realize you are a drop in a bucket of beautiful, shiny things. Beautiful, perfect, like finished, down to the detail, everything flawless, right? And there's a lot of that out there. And when you think of art as a woman, there are a lot of women out there with perfect hair and perfect makeup. And yes, that will perform. But because there's so many of them, guess what kinds of like women's empowerment accounts actually do well? Women who are like, this is what I look like when I don't wear makeup. This is what I look like when I don't do my hair. This is what I look like when I haven't had any sleep. It's allowing people to understand that you are actually more interesting than what you look like. And your art, flipping it back, is actually, sometimes the human and the story behind the art for the collector is more interesting than the art itself. Like when they're teetering on whether or not to pull the trigger on the commission or buy the big piece from you, at times, in my experience, it's about getting to know you that tips the scale, right? Think of Middle Eastern culture. I'm part Turkish and Lebanese. My husband's Persian as well, But think of Middle Eastern culture and other cultures where in a market setting, open air market, you're expected to have at least a cup of tea with somebody before you start asking them for discounts or bartering or any sort of business. It's like forcing you to have some sort of relationship with them before you start haggling and maybe asking them to undervalue these beautiful handmade things, right? Like in Marrakesh. Oh, I love shopping in Marrakesh. Anyway, so think about that, Chris, where unless you're advertising and generally doing relationship building on the side, only having pictures of your art is not going to help you compete in this ever expanding ocean of art. And some of these people are digital artists and some of these people paint things and take really nice pictures of them. And yeah, you betcha some of these people are digitally manipulating paintings to make them look more colorful, to make them look sharper, to make them look brighter than they actually are, even if you put a really great light on it, right? They're photoshopping art to help sell it. You better believe people are doing that. So you can't really depend on like this photorealistic, fantastic, perfect thing to really sell it for some people. It's that connection with you or with how it was made or with what went into it. And you all know, or those of you who've taken my other workshops know, I love time lapses or hyperlapses, which is just something you could do with your smartphone. You just have it record you and take a photo of you every 5 seconds or every 20 seconds while you're painting for 1 hour, 2 hours, 8 hours, and just posting that and being like, here's a moment of me painting. And it's for them on social media, 15 seconds. But for you, it was 3 hours of painting. But that hyperlapse, that time lapse functionality, it shows someone what happens when you start playing with art. So like Don is an example because he does digital art. It's really easy to do a screen recording when you do digital art. So it's not like you maybe want to share your secret sauce or your process, but it would be fun to do a screen recording of working with digital art where you're like, and here's where I put, the figure in the middle of the big giant dollar bill. Or here's the thing where I put or added this really cool, 19th century element in the corner, not necessarily giving away your secrets artistically or creatively. But I mean, let's also just keep thinking of the Beatles song, right? There are really no new ideas. So there are a lot of people out there doing exactly what you do, same quality or better, but they're better at marketing it than you are. They're posting more often there than you are. They're using more hashtags than you are. And so they become seen. So unless you want to like fiercely compete with those hyper productive creatives that are out there, then seriously consider investing that time in opening up the curtain, if you will, and allowing your process and you to be part of the content that you put out there. Renat, you also had emailed me and you said, how do you put music on video reels? So reels are kind of a complicated situation. And for those who don't know, Instagram has now a video functionality similar to the TikTok platform, and it's called Reels, capital R or lowercase EELS. And so these can be 15 seconds or a minute, and Instagram is pushing them on users, trying to get them to adopt this technology and stop kind of leaving Instagram or Facebook and going to the TikTok platform and making their videos there. So when you're making a video on TikTok and you choose the Reels functionality, it can be limiting in how you can use, for instance, the selection of music, what you're asking about, Renat. When you have a personal account, you've never advertised and you never plan to, you can have access to almost any music, like Madonna, Beyonce. I don't know why I'm only thinking of like pop artists from the 90s, but you get what I'm saying. Anybody. But if you do activate the business profile side of Instagram, which I highly recommend, because what do we say? You should be advertising. Then you are expected to follow certain copyrights. And so one of the best ways to customize a video and put whatever music you want on it, whether you're going to advertise it or not, is to source it elsewhere and then use the third-party application that I've trained you guys about called InShot, capital I, lowercase n, capital SHOT. And again, refer to our YouTube link in the chat. Love this playlist of videos that I can refer to. Go to the link in the chat for the YouTube playlist, and in there is a training on making videos about your art, and I talk all about InShot and how to use it. But essentially, you can add any music you want to any video or photo clips, and then when you finish it there, you put it into Instagram as a reel. And so that's what I do because I have a business account and I advertise, is I use the InShot app and add music there. And if you're like, how do I get the music? InShot has its own music that's royalty free, that you can just a library that you can pull from, so you don't have to do anything. There are also a couple of royalty-free websites that are really fun online. One of them is called Purple Planet, the color purple and planet. But then also, and similarly to how we looked up QR code generator on YouTube, there are free websites where you can download the audio from a video on YouTube. So if you find a YouTube video with music you like, maybe it's Stan Getz, maybe it's, Barry White, but it's like the audio of the YouTube sounds good. There are free websites, just like with a QR code generator, where you can basically rip the music from a YouTube video and then have it as a file on your computer or on your phone. So that's a topic for another conversation, but there are ways to source music that's customized in that respect. Another way we're not, and this is crazy, is on TikTok, this video platform that Instagram is emulating. It has access to all that music. It lets you export and download the video that you make. So you make a 15-second video on TikTok with some Stan Getz in the back. You download it. On the InShot video editing app, it allows you to extract audio from a video. So you pull in this little 15-second TikTok that you made, and you can get that Stan Getz audio from the TikTok. That includes other people's TikToks. I know we're getting really crazy deep into stuff. I should have a TikTok training, but essentially someone else can have a video on TikTok with a really great jazz track that you just like love, and you can download their video from TikTok. No issues, no permissions, and then open the InShot app and it can pull the music from that TikTok that you just downloaded of someone else's. So you don't even have to make anything. So these are all the fun, creative ways that your favorite video person customizes and uses music on video. But I would definitely, Renat, spend some time with the InShot app if you haven't already and check out the music they have. And then if you're looking for a specific piece of music, if you haven't made your account into a business account on Instagram, on Reels, it allows you to add music through their platform. It just may or may not be a limited search. If you have a business account, there's still music you can add to a video on a Reel, but it's only royalty-free music, which means you can't get that favorite Barry White or jazz song that you love, because the platform's limiting you for marketing purposes. You're welcome, Chris. Do you try to use all 30 hashtags each time you post? Great question, Melissa. No, I jump between 20 and 25 usually, because I've found that when I use too few, I don't get a lot of performance, and when I use too many, I don't get a lot of performance. So I kind of straddle, but I want to maximize. So I'd say between 15 and 25, but it's probably average of 20 to 25. I don't usually touch 30. Ooh, good one, Georgette. So Georgette said YouTube will bounce any copyrighted music no matter how long it is. So that's a great point. We are talking more about social media, meaning as long as it's 15 seconds or shorter, which is a really short video, I know, Instagram or Facebook will allow it. They might label it as someone else's song, but they'll allow it. As soon as you go past the 15-second mark, which is kind of the traditional TikTok length, that's where it came from, that's where you might get your video on Instagram taken down, or the platform will just mute it, which is really annoying because you like spent all this time like making your art look good to music, and now it's just silent. So keep in mind that the 15-second mark is like the magical point. Also, Renat, and just for everybody to be clear, Reels are an excellent way to build your organic traction on social media because these platforms are trying to get less people to use TikTok and more people to use the Instagram video functionality. However, you cannot advertise or boost Reels. Just categorically, you can't. That type of content cannot have $5 or $10 or $1 put behind it. So you can get a lot of traction on Reels, but you want to make sure you're putting hashtags, different search terms for your art, for what you're showing people in the caption, and or as well in the comments after you've posted it, right? There's a difference between the caption, the text that's included when you post something, and then there are the comments underneath. You can put hashtags in both places, but make sure you put some hashtags in there somewhere when you're doing Reels, because you can't boost it or advertise with it or promote it otherwise. Georgette, you'd emailed me and said, formatting photos for Facebook and Instagram. Did you want to explain what you meant by that? You mean like sizing them or cropping them?
Yeah, I actually meant more MailChimp and stuff like that. Because if you pull an image out of your iPhoto or out of Photoshop even more, and you want to put it into an email program, what's the optimum size and how do you figure it out?
So essentially with email marketing, which is what Georgette is asking about, MailChimp, Constant Contact, if you got an email about this workshop, Marin Open Studios uses Constant Contact. So that is the email marketing platform that Marin Open Studios uses. And I did do an email marketing workshop, and that's in your YouTube playlist. And so with emails, even if someone is opening an email on a gigantic desktop, and like mine, I think is like this screen I'm on right now presenting to you guys, I want to say it's like 27 inches. So it's not as big as my TV, right? My TV is bigger than my computer. But for even a large computer screen, you want to think of pixels from left to right when you're thinking of email. And of course, mobile is a different thing in your hand, different scenario. But with emails, which people will sometimes and frequently open on a desktop or a laptop instead of on their phone, because it's easier to read things on a big screen than it is in the palm of your hand. So when you think of pixels, which is basically on your computer, the units that the computer uses to gauge the width and the sharpness and quality of something, you don't ever want to go wider than 400 pixels across, 400, Georgette. So if you have an image and it's from Photoshop, or it's from, it's a really nice program, or it's a high resolution file, like those files an artist would use to make a professional giclée print, those are big ass files, excuse my French. So you want to consider that file is probably at least 1,000 pixels across, or 1080 is how we talk about video pixels, right? Or it's 2000 pixels across, or I've helped Georgette with some emails. I'm sure she's had pictures of her art that we've played with that have been like 3000 pixels across, just like super high quality, sharp pictures of her art, like big pieces. And so you have to think about how to bring that down size-wise so that the widest part from left to right is 400 pixels. Anything wider than that does not benefit you in the actual resolution of the average computer screen. If someone's looking at it on a 60-inch 4K television, yeah, it might be a little soft. But if someone's looking at a picture of your art on a computer, like my big ass computer, stop swearing, then 400 across, 400 pixels across is all you need. And so in MailChimp and Constant Contact, they have an in-app photo editor, an image editor, and you can just boop, you're not cropping anything, but you're reducing the actual quality of it to 400 pixels. Sharpest is 400 pixels from left to right. Anything up and down, Georgette, no big deal. But left and right is what you want to think about as far as both the size of the file. And then as far as, I think you said letter sizes, like text size, Georgette, I think is that what you meant? One of the reasons why I started working with Marin Open Studios on their emails in the last year is because I read a lot of my emails on my phone, even though it's not as fun as on a big computer or a tablet. And so I know from my user experience, right? Because again, user experience driven content creator over here. I knew that sometimes when I get emails that are in a regular font that would be on an 8.5, 11, essay paper, it's like 10 point or 12 point or even 14 point can be a struggle to read, can be uncomfortable to read in certain devices. So for email marketing, MailChimp or Constant Contact for text, I say 20 point font is the minimum. And then if you want to do a title, then that's going to be bigger, right? Maybe it's 36 point font or 48 point font that tends to have little, jumps.
I use a laptop and I tend to send emails on Calibri, like 12 point. And that works for me. I would think 20 points, if you were looking at it on a phone, you'd only see like 4 words in a line.
Great question. Great question. So now we're talking about the difference between you using a program, and this applies to your website as well, you using a program for your email that is mobile responsive. Because to a point, you can make the text any size you want, but it's always going to be resizing it for the device that it's on if it's a responsive design. The difference with a program or an email platform that doesn't respond to the device that it's opened on is that people have to pinch in and pinch out to read your emails. So I would just ask you that, Lorna. I was going to say, like, if it was a live critique, we're in a town hall, Lorna, send me one of those emails. I'm going to open it with my phone. I'm going to tell you if I like it. No, that's harsh. But when I say user experience, if someone has to pinch in and out to read any of your emails or any pages on your website, you are not using a mobile responsive program or design. And then what I just said about point font is out the window because then people only see what you tell them point wise to see, and it'll just fit how it fits and not adjust itself to be bigger or smaller based on the platform. When you use a responsive design, and look, we can go to my website. So this is what it looks like wide, and then I take it this way and then see how everything starts, like it's not like the text is shrinking yet, but everything is adjusting to what I'm doing, restacking itself, and then all of a sudden, you see that happen? There's a menu at the top. Super helpful for me to be able to, shop my prices and my services with this menu. But this is what it looks like on a computer or a tablet right now. We're basically looking at like a horizontal tablet orientation. If I take it closer to a smartphone, boom, you've lost that detailed menu at the top. You've lost this like widescreen thing. You still have the little line menu. And if you were paying attention, we had this big wide picture of me, right? With these 3 subcategories. And one of them is my custom dog portrait order form. So right now they're left to right, left to right, left to right. But because I have a mobile responsive website, it starts compressing them and then it stacks them. So this is now showing me on my computer what my website looks like on a phone. And that's what I mean by font. It is adjusting how big this is based on the size of the window that I'm allowing it to use. And so you'll always be readable. And so when you think of the ability to make your content more user-friendly, you shouldn't be, this is all part of the email marketing YouTube workshop, so you can get all these tips there. But as a reminder from that, you don't want more than 20 lines of text from left to right in an email. So if you've got a really small font, sure, you could probably fit in more text in less lines. If you have a really big font, vice versa. But you just want to think from left to right when you're writing paragraphs in an email. You don't want more than 20 lines from top to bottom of text, because for the most part, you're not necessarily going to close a deal on a piece of art in your email inbox. It's probably more likely you'll close a deal on a piece of art if someone is calling you, texting you, messaging back and forth with you, maybe on social media, or coming and seeing you in person at an event. So when you're thinking about the return on investment for your art, you don't want your emails to be text heavy, even if you have more to say. You want to say read more and then take them to your website where your blog is. Take them to your social media platform where they can follow you. Take them to an article that you wrote on a topic about art, anything you want to do to continue the conversation, but you want to eventually take it out of email and not make your email itself be like a big issue of like National Geographic, right? Like a lot of information and a lot of images, and it's really pretty and it's super shiny, and man, I can't read this all in one sitting. I think I'm going to put it in the shelf, and then like when I have a National Geographic moment, I'm going to come back and read it. Don't be that email. Be that email that makes someone excited about your art, but leaves them wanting. Write that email that when people from that point on see your emails in their inbox, they're not like, oh man, is that another email from Caron? It's probably going to be a novel. Ugh, don't have time for that. I'll save it. Maybe I'll read it later. And maybe they won't, and it slips through the cracks. But if you write quick, dirty emails, not dirty, but quick and impactful emails that leave them wanting more, read more here, go here, and just take a button somewhere, that's where you can make your approach multi-platform. Then it's not like, ooh, I have so many people on my email newsletter, but I don't get that many commissions. Oh, I have so many people who are on my email newsletter list, but of all the foot traffic I had at Open Studios, I didn't sell any original pieces. So it's like, are you actually reaching people via email, or should you be reaching them in email and social media, right? Or email and now they subscribe to your blog, or email and now they're following you on YouTube. As soon as you're in another place on the internet and they're also following you there, guess what happens faster? Them seeing you 7 times and deciding to buy your art. And I'm a, multimedia maven, if you will. So I'm not scared of technology. I like playing with stuff and experimenting. And I am on every major platform. So it's a lot of work. I can speak to the investment of time I've had in my own business to build the brand and reputation that I have. But if you're only sending out an email newsletter and you're not selling as much art as you want to, maybe your newsletter needs to be shorter, and your blogs and your product pages with sellable art on your website, maybe those need to be written longer. Because guess what Google can't do? Read your emails, meaning that they can't search terminology in your newsletter, But if you have a really well-written page on your website or a really well-written blog with landscape painting, landscape artists, all these great terms about what you do in your process, and the robots read that text, and then the next time someone looks up landscape painter Mill Valley, portrait painter San Francisco, the robots have read many paragraphs of text on your website on that topic, and they're showing you in the first page of results. But if all of your gems and stories and relatable experiences and backstories of your art, like your whole newsletter is in email, you're not maximizing the potential marketing power of the words that you're using, and you're severely limiting the potential reach and audience of your content in a digital world where you can have international searchable reach. And so having a bigger point font forces you not to put too much in there, because otherwise, yeah, it takes a lot longer to scroll something in a 20-point font than in a 12-point font for sure. But it limits your stuff, and it makes it where no one has to squint. They don't have to put on their reading glasses. They don't have to pinch in and out. And most of my collectors are at reading glasses age. So I want to make it easier for them. And if you have a responsive website and a responsive email marketing platform, it will adjust the font for you to a degree based on the design that you're accessing. This has been great. I hope it's been a helpful session for you. But if you have any other questions or topics for future workshops or any feedback on this kind of Q&A town hall format, please, please, please let us know, because Kay is always looking to qualify our efforts to really maximize the helpful resources for you guys and make it where you guys can shine online.
Thank you so much, Caron.
A lot of good information today. Thank you.
Happy to help. Cheers.
Great, thank you.
Au revoir. Adios.